Welcome to the Shutter Saga Podcast. I'm your host, Marvin Blue. Join me each week as we dive into amazing conversations with some of our industry's top leaders. We will talk about photography, business, and most of all, share the stories that have laid the foundation to our journey in this world we call photography. A couple of ways to support the show is to like, subscribe, and share the show with others. Leave those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and if you're a fan of seeing us live, we are on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Again, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome welcome all to another episode of the Shutter Saga Podcast. I am your host, Marvin Blue. With me, as always, is a wonderful guest. It's actually another podcaster. He is the host of Focused AF Podcast. You can see it on YouTube, Spotify, All Things Podcast, just like you can see the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But again, let me introduce this amazing human being, Ben Lau, coming to us from New Jersey. Ben, how you doing, bud?
Happy to be here. You almost said AOL for a minute there.
I know, yeah, I caught myself. I was like, yeah, I'm showing. Well, I figured if they watch this on video, they'll see the gray hair and that fact that I just didn't feel like shaving today. So I went to look older, so I could have my guests looking younger. We could have played this game of who's actually young.
You're very kind. You're very kind. Yeah, you're very kind.
Ben, how you doing, man? Thanks for being on today.
Oh, I'm doing all right. I don't know if you've been following along on my feed. I got back from Atlanta, I think, on Thursday, right?
Okay.
And I came home. There were thunderstorms and lightning storms up here in the New York City metro area. It shut down all my servers, all my internet. Everything was down. My security cameras, everything was down. So I spent from Thursday to Sunday just pulling cable, pulling wires, setting up everything from scratch, building my entire internet infrastructure from scratch because the cables were bad and it was a mess. And I got a few hard drives that were fried. So yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You guys had a hurricane come through in that area, right? The tri-state area.
I don't know. I was in Atlanta.
Okay.
All I know is that when I came home, nothing was working. Right. So
sorry, baby, daddy was in Atlanta, eating soul food and contemplating moving us to Atlanta now.
Yeah, I had some barbecue down there. Did you get a chance to enjoy some of the barbecue down there?
I didn't get to do no barbecue, but I'm in Texas, so it's like,
yeah,
I get Texas barbecue all the time, so missing out on barbecue isn't a big deal to me.
Yeah, I don't think we have much of a barbecue culture up here in Jersey, New York. So
you guys got good pizza, though. I give you that. The pizza up there. I think it's the water.
Legend says that I should go try out the sweet tea, and it didn't taste that sweet to me. Maybe I went to the wrong place.
You didn't get the sweet tea.
Yeah, I was like, this tastes like Lipton brisk.
Oh, you definitely didn't go to the right place.
I was like, I was told that it was supposed to be really sweet, but anyway, I'll try again next time for sure.
So the backstory with me and you is recently connected, but we have so many mutual friends, and then when I finally got to meet you in person, it was like immediately hit it off. I was like, this guy's awesome, hilarious. I was like, I get meeting my people, and anytime I get to meet my people, I'm just gonna run with it. So it was like awesome to see it, and then obviously I'm a fan of the show, so watch it, and I just love you guys' candid energy that you guys give on your podcast. So I was like, we got to get him on here, and
are we going to talk about?
Your time.
Are we going to talk about the 2 a.m. Elevator selfies and the 3 a.m.
Absolutely. Oh, we're going to go ahead and talk.
So we're just going to leave. We're
going to lead with the shenanigans. This is going to be the typical show where we talk about our love stories for photography and everything and how we built it from the ground up, and then we just had these amazing careers. You guys know that. We're going to talk about the shenanigans because that's what everybody wants to know.
My wife saw the picture. She's like, "What is this? Middle-aged people gone wild? What is going on here?"
So we connected at the Boca Summit.
The Boca Photo Summit. Shout out to Andre Brown.
Yeah, Andre Brown, former guest of the show. He put on this amazing conference in Atlanta. This was his first show. I personally think it was a success. The amount of feedback, I like to sit back and listen, and I got to be a student instead of volunteer or instructor or leading anything. So it was really cool to take a step back and just really get to be a student and immerse myself as a student, as someone building a portfolio and kind of having on that hat for once. And just the amount of organization and moving parts that he had for that. I feel like he catered to everybody that, was there. Every student, I think, walked away with something. So I think to me, it was a home run. And I think it's going to get better. I'm already set to be registered for next year's summit just because I'm going to continue to support it. And I love what he's doing for the industry and for the culture. So
Yeah, for sure.
And then he just
1000%.
he brought so many people together, and it's like, here we are, instant friends. We're out, 2 a.m. going bar hopping, a bunch of middle-aged people, middle-aged photographers bar hopping through Atlanta. This makes the story of like, hey, give me a scenario for a bad idea. Let's get a bunch of half-drunken middle-aged photographers with expensive cameras walking through downtown Atlanta at night, no regard to safety or anything. We're like, you know what, we're doing it. Why not?
Yeah, we went to that. We went to a nightclub across the street. I was like, man, these people are like half my age. What am I doing here? I didn't care.
But you know what? The drinks were flowing, and to me, it was just you're meeting people, that you admire, people that you respect, and I think it was just the connection. Is to me, it captured this true essence of what a conference is all about. So I always say hats off to Andre, because again, I got to just increase my network and meet people that have been on my radar and get to meet them in person, get to just pick their brain, which was always amazing. And you, not to cut you off, or not to overtalk you, you gave this amazing class about growing your business in a different avenue. And let's speak on that briefly. You were talking about having associate shooters and kind of almost building a second revenue stream.
Correct. What would you like to know? Where should we start?
I think everybody's going to start with like the how and, the who, what, where, when, and how. It's like, but I look at it as like, this is the conversation of how do you sit back and make money without having to pick up the camera. And I think if you're a wedding photographer, this is the way you do it.
Well, the way that I structured my presentation wasn't really to inspire people to start associate brands. If anything at all, it was just to try to talk people off the ledge. Because I think a lot of times when people start their associate brands, they get preoccupied with the dollar signs, and a lot of times they don't really understand all the headaches that come along with those dollar signs. They just see the passive income, and they don't know that that there are a lot of other problems that people don't talk about, the unsexy parts of running an associate brand. So I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So you have a lot of times you have a tech problem, right? It's not a money problem, it's like a talent problem. Because in order for you to be competitive and to be profitable, you got to be charging a certain rate. And then in order for you to have people shooting for you at a certain rate, you got to pay them well. It's a lot of things that you have to calculate. And the thing is, if I'll give you an example. Let's say you got someone who is shooting at a $4,000 caliber, level of work. You got to pay them that $4,000 caliber of pay. And no matter how generous you think you might be, even if you're paying them $2,000 for a job, if they get a $4,000 job on their own, if they have the ability to get a $4,000 job on their own, what's going to keep them from taking that job as opposed to sticking around with you for $2,000? $2,000 is still very generous, right? But if they have the opportunity to make $4,000 on their own, why should they stick with you? So a lot of what I talked about in my presentation was like, all right, well, what do you do to keep these people on board? What do you have to do in order to kind of earn that loyalty from the people who are on your team? And what are some of the potential problems that you might encounter, right? Like what are you going to do when people call out sick? They get hurt on the job, right? Here's the thing. You and I as solopreneurs, if we've got the sniffles, we're going out to shoot, right? We sprained something, we're going out to shoot. We're going to pop an Advil and go out and shoot, okay? A couple years ago, I had several medical emergencies, right? I had open surgery, I had an open wound, and I was changing bandages every hour on the hour. I was still bleeding while I was shooting this wedding, right? And I'm going to do that. But there's no way in hell I'm going to expect my associates to do that, not for $1,000 for the day. You know what I mean? So these are the things that you got to think about when you're running your associate team. Like, how hard do you run them? How hard do you work them? How do you attract that talent? And what are your backup plans when things don't happen the way that you want them to, right? Because listen, if we didn't run into any problems, if everything ran smoothly, then everybody would be running associate programs. But that's not the case. I have so many stories of these solopreneurs running these associate brands, and things just don't work out the way they thought it would. They're just looking at passive income or secondary income, but there's a lot of other things they need to consider. I've been ranting for a long time. I could talk about this forever.
Well, you know what? You're more than welcome to rant away, because again, the people, they love it. They love the story. They love to get that knowledge.
Right.
I think the biggest thing that comes to mind when for me, on my perspective, with having associate shooters, because I've had, most of them are just friends that I've worked with, and then I know they're good enough to do the job, and I just make sure, like I said, take care of them, pay them more than the average. If the average people are paying 75 an hour, I'm gonna over the top it, just so
Right.
I can make sure that no one's gonna say no to me or say yes and then at the last minute cancel on me because they had another paying job. They'll just tell me up front, like, yeah, I'm got another gig, but
Let me tell
whatever.
you something, Marvin.
I
I was
think
paying
managing
someone.
ego, yeah.
Yeah, I was paying somebody a lot, like I think I want to say about 150 an hour, and called me about a month or 2 months beforehand. Got a gig to shoot a destination wedding somewhere tropical, right?
Mm.
For like 3 or 4 grand, right? Plus travel. Like, am I going to be that asshole who's going to stop them from that opportunity, prevent them from having that opportunity? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So even if I'm being generous, paying them a lot of money,
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, you can't. It's almost like there's not a price tag to replace passion and bucket list moments. I've never done a wedding in Costa Rica and they cancel on you, like you were supposed to do it. And it's like at least they gave me enough time to find. It's the ones that where they tell me the week of or the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but then it's like here this is where I go on my rant about it. Don't cancel on me and then post on your Instagram that you're doing something. I'm like looking at and I can match the dates. I have half a brain. You follow me and I follow you. It's like, if you're gonna lie, you gotta do a better job at lying. Don't post say you got COVID and then an hour later I see you posting at the wedding, dream wedding or bucket list completed or whatever, and you're doing a toast or whatever, and I'm like, the fuck? I thought you had COVID. Oh, bitch,
So
you're shooting a wedding in Cancun.
this is why hiring the right people are
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
so important, right?
Yep.
And I talked about it in my presentation. My associates don't become lead shooters for years. All right, I put them through the ringer. I got to make them prove to me that I can trust them. They're going to show up on time, represent the brand well. They're not going to give me some, lame-o excuses why they didn't do something, or maybe they showed up late or whatever it is. Right? I need to know that they're dependable. Because if they can like prove to me that they're reliable for the little things, that means I can rely on them on the big things, like showing up and taking the photos I need them to take. So, but as far as how I started this, we never really had any ambitions to start an associate brand. It just kind of happened organically on its own. As I mentioned in my class, we were starting our primary brand, my photography brand, around the same time we were starting a family. So while my wife was out and away, I had all these people who helped me out during that time. And then when my wife came back to work, I had all these people who had helped me out for like 2 years. And kicking them out to the curb was the wrong move. It would have been the wrong move. So I was like, listen, guys, I got some extra work. If you want it, it's yours. If you don't, that's fine too. But clearly you guys enjoy what you do. If you want, I'll take care of everything. The only thing you got to do is just show up and shoot. And this was before I learned of the term associate brand. I didn't even know that's what it was called. I just called it my sister brand, where all my other photographers are housed. And first year we did 6 weddings. Second year we did 46. Third year we did 80 weddings through this associate brand. This is not including my stuff. This is just the associate brand. And it was all just referrals and social media. That was it. That was it. You get into one friend group, you shoot all their friends.
Yeah, it happens that way. So let me ask you this, because I mean, obviously, this is something that's always on my brain. How do you manage egos, yours included, like when you're dealing with an associate brand, your own personal brand, everything?
My associates are pretty humble. I feel like we have a pretty good crew, right? Yes, they are artists at the end of the day. So I do need to be delicate sometimes when I provide them with feedback and stuff like that. But they keep me honest too, because the thing is, I got to teach them how to shoot and everything too, right? So whatever I'm teaching them and telling them what to do, I got to be doing that stuff myself. So if I'm posting something or sharing something that kind of deviates from what I'm teaching, they'll call me out on it, and that's made me be a better teacher overall. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Find yourself taking lead on like kind of their development in regards, like let's say, like for instance, we just came off the Boca Summit. Are you in that situation where you're like, I'm taking 3 of y'all to the Boca Summit, I'm taking 3 of you to imaging or something like that,
So in my presentation, you'll know that as far as the people that I bring on board, they usually have 9-to-5 jobs.
Okay.
So that's one of the prerequisites before I bring someone on board. The people that I bring on board, they're generally speaking, they're weekend warriors. Okay. So this means it's very hard for them to shoot during the week. So we're doing only Saturday and Sunday weddings with these guys. I have two shooters who can shoot on a Friday. For the most part, they're weekend warriors. So they don't have the flexibility to go out for 3-4 days. And some of these folks have families as well. So for sure, I won't be able to pull them out for like 2-3 days. However, I have presented that to them in the past. You guys want to go to Vegas? There's conferences and stuff. They politely declined, even though I offered to pay. I think it's a timing issue. So what I do instead is, whatever information that I pick up, whatever I learn, I'm doing workshops with them, one-on-one workshops. I'm critiquing their work. I'm providing CC and all that stuff. So I'm still developing them. I just happen to be the one who's doing it for them.
So to kind of flow in the question, what got you, or how long have you been a photographer now?
I've been shooting since 2010 professionally.
Okay.
2010.
So everyone always asks, what was the first camera?
First camera? My first camera, I got that camera for my honeymoon, or for my wedding gift. It was a D80. My wife bought me a D80 with the kit lens and the nifty 50, and I borrowed my dad's 55 to 200. It was a 5.6. He didn't know anything either. So listen, we didn't know anything. But listen, I took some amazing photos on that trip because I was very passionate about my craft. I was studying the hell out of it. And listen, that was 16 years ago, right? So I'm still very passionate about my craft. I'm still studying. I'm still learning. I'm putting my ego aside because there's always room to learn and improve. You know what I mean? But I still have that camera. I sold all the cameras that I've purchased since then, but that's the one I've kept because it's my wedding gift.
Oh yeah, you can't. That's like giving away your watches. Yeah, I mean that's up there with getting a watch or a Rolex for the wedding. And
you're gonna get me started talking about watches now. Huh?
We'll eventually hit the watches. I'm going bare wrist today, so there's no watch on. I should have wore the Rolex for the show, but Rolexes aren't exactly podcast appropriate because no one would see it anyway.
No one can see it. Well, I mean, aren't you sharing these videos or not?
I share it on YouTube, but I think more people listen to it on Spotify. So if
you can post videos on Spotify.
Oh, you can? Okay, I gotta look into. I'm again, still learning the podcast game. But because again, when I first came into podcasting, everything was Apple Podcast, and then so iHeartRadio and Spotify wasn't where it was, and then it was you can convert it over to YouTube. Now it's like you have all these platforms that have it, and you have people that are hardcore to certain platforms where they won't listen to anything outside of that platform. That's their
we're our podcast is on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, as far as I'm concerned.
The big three, and then the fourth one that I found out have hardcore fan bases, iHeartRadio.
We might be on it. I got to look into that. I'll let my podcast co-host know. I'll let our producer know.
Yeah. It's like it'll make up such a small percentage, but I've learned the iHeartRadio fan base is a hardcore fan base. So it's like definitely, they have that they're a niche fan base, but I still want to cater to them. And it was that
rock and roll. Yeah. I'm not wearing anything special today. I do own an Apple Watch. Is that a shame?
Same here. It's like I have these. I'm a watch guy, but then I have an Apple Watch, and it's like I use the Apple Watch more than I care to admit to because it's like I got to get my steps in, make sure I'm closing my rings, all that good stuff. But it's like I want to go to the weddings, and then it's like I have that struggle of like, oh, I want to wear this nice watch to the wedding, and then I go there, and then it almost looks like an ego move where I'm showing out because the groom is like wearing a Fossil watch, or he might get a really nice, maybe a Seiko or maybe an Omega, and then I'm rocking a Rolex. So it's like I've learned to kind of figure out which tier watch to wear to like a wedding, whatever, and then obviously I'll pull out the big ones for like big moments and kind of like figured it out.
I mean, I wear Citizen watches to work.
Yep.
So it's like it's not cheap, it's not super fancy either. But
my Seikos are kind of like my daily one. If I wasn't going to wear the Apple Watch Seikos, it's kind of my go-to because it's almost like when I was a kid, I thought Fossil watches were it. Like, oh gosh, it was Fossil and Rolex were the only two brands I knew. And then in the military, it was Breitling and Omega were the big ones, and then Tag Heuer was another one.
Tag Heuer, right?
Tag Heuer, yeah. Yep. So I have a few of them. Now I always look at things like if I see certain watches, I'm like, oh, that would go great with this suit, and I'm like, when am I going to wear that suit? Okay, I'm going to buy this to Tissot anyways, even though I might only wear it twice in the 1 year. still gonna buy it. It's like, so I have to fight that urge to. I don't want to have like 30 something watches because it's like I gotta watch for every day of the month. But then it's like,
But no, you can collect them. Just because you have them doesn't mean you got to wear them all the time.
Oh
right?
yeah.
But anyway, I met the wrong person at the summit last week. I met one of the guys from Cheetah Stands. He's a watch
Charles,
guy.
yes, Charles.
He's a watch guy, and he got me in all these groups and stuff now. So he's got some vintage watches and stuff. I was like, this looks nice. Doesn't even have to be a Rolex. You know what I mean?
It's fun. Yeah, I have all these nice watches, but one of the watches that I wear the most is this Casio little wrist. Just this rubber band. Casio watch that my daughter got me for Father's Day.
Yeah, it's sentimental.
Like, yeah, exactly. The sentimental ones get worn the most, which is hilarious. And it's like, but I don't care. Again,
I only got one sentimental watch in my case. So, yeah,
I have. Okay. So anything that I get for birthday or Father's Day from the kids is always going to be sentimental. Obviously, the Rolex one is sentimental because I told myself if I get 10 years in this industry, I was going to give myself that was going to be my gift. So when I hit 10 years in the midst of COVID, I was like, I'm going to get this, and then I was able, I got on the list, and I remember going to WPPI, and right before I went, I get the email like, hey, your name came up, when would you like to schedule a thing? I said, I'm actually going to be there for WPPI. I'd love to come through. And I went in thinking like, man, they're going to have a bunch of like $20,000 Rolexes. And I was able to just catch a real beautiful piece that was at a great price. And I was like, you know what, I'm getting that. And then as soon as I buy, the guy goes, you got it below its value right now. So you actually can, he's like, you can resell it. And you're probably going to make about $2 or $3 grand on it. I'm like, oh, sweet.
What?
Okay.
Well, you're not selling it. It's your first. You're never gonna forget your first.
I'm not selling that one, but it was like kind of cool to like have that. It's like, obviously if I had sons, I'd give it to my son, but I have daughters. They're gonna hopefully get married one day, and I could kind of make that a part of their legacy gift. Give this to your husband.
So how long have you been shooting?
I started shooting professionally in 2013.
2013. Okay, rock and roll.
I started learning or 2013 is when I started my business. Started learning in 2010.
All right, and then when you have an associate team as well, right? So when did you start that one?
Oh, it's not necessarily an associate team. There's second shooters and associate shooters that if something ever happens, I can call them up. And I haven't officially made like a secondary business or
sure.
It's just been people that I've worked with over the years that I got friendships with, and hey, help me out. We got double booked, especially like after COVID. I think between 2021 and 2022, I was so double booked because we were moving everything from 2020 so we were double booked whether we liked it or not. And so being able to have people that I could rely on, and again, my biggest move was I was willing to pay more money just to ensure that peace of mind. And then so once I saw that it was viable, getting contracts with certain wedding venues where they have you come on and they sell a package that includes photography, and then we just pay a flat rate by the venue. That's where that associate team came into play very much, because I could pay them, that person $150 an hour, and they go out there, kill it. They're shooting at a beautiful venue, and then, I still made some money on the back end. All I had to do was edit it and, maybe speak to the client a few times. But, some of those venues I still have a relationship with, some of them have kind of depleted where the venue didn't grow, or now they had to cut prices, and it's like they had to phase me out because they felt they were paying too much for that service. But I wasn't going to drop the price any lower because I still want to make sure my people pay.
Right. You got to take care of your people. That's the other thing too, right? If you don't want to end up on the 7 o'clock news, you got to take care of your people. Yeah. That's how.
And you see a lot of these companies, out here, especially in Texas, where there are these brands and they have quote unquote multiple shooters or whatever, and really you find out the back end they don't have the 8 shooters that they make you think they do. It's just a company face, and they volume book weddings, and then they just call up people like, can you do this wedding? Can you do it? Until someone says yes, and then they're only paying a certain amount of money, so there's no built-in loyalty from their own people because they're like, I'll say yes unless something else comes up, kind of thing, and you run into a lot, and they'll book a bunch of weddings and then they no-show the weddings, or the photographer no shows because they could care less, or or they don't pay the photographer after the fact or whatever. So and I mean, we can go on and on about those companies, and that's why I think that's where people have that fear of associate shooting and whatever. Like for me, I associate shoot for my friends. They associate shoot. There's always been a trade like, hey, do this wedding for me. I'm going out of town. I want to get an extra day to travel. It's like, all right, I got you, and I'll take care of the wedding, and I know how they shoot and go from there.
But I would invite others to consider another option, which is to just refer that job out completely. If you don't have an associate program infrastructure already built in to your business, just refer it out. Instead of you trying to shave, a couple $100 off the top, or maybe even $1,000 off the top, just let your buddy have the full pie. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. For some folks who are not, who don't have the infrastructure in place, right? Just do that. You know what I mean? Because I see these emergency SOS posts in these Facebook groups all the time. Hey, my associate just failed. It's a week out from the wedding. Who can cover this, right? And they'll share that they vetted the portfolio, they met with these photographers, and they thought everything was going to be on the up and up. But when it came time to actually execute, they find themselves in a lot of hot water. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would invite a lot of folks to maybe consider another option, which was the option for a long, long time, which is, hey, listen, I can't shoot this gig, but listen, if I can't eat, I want my friends to eat, so let them have the whole thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I would that's what I would offer some folks to consider. You don't have to take everything that comes in through the door. You know what I
mean? The ability to say no, I think is it's very underrated, but people don't realize how important that is until they're in that situation where they can look at a potential client, hear the details about their wedding, and just go, I am not the guy for that. I don't want to be part of this wedding. She's going to be a nightmare. Right. And then you just say, no, I'm actually, I don't think I'm a good fit for you. Just the polite way of saying no. Like for me, the trick I've always said is, if I don't want to do a wedding, I overcharge. And it was like, why you overcharge?
Oh, yeah, just don't take it.
I try, obviously when you just say no, they take it, they take offense to it. So the joke I've always said is overcharge, because, if you typically charge this much, then overshoot it or whatever, overthrow the quote on purpose. And I said, the kickback was, somebody goes, what if they said yes? I said, they're paying you a lot of money to basically put up with them. So you're getting paid very well. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you're either going to get paid very well to put up with something you may not necessarily want to be put up with, and you'll learn something from it, or you don't do it. But I like your approach, which I think is a lot easier, which is pass it on. Because I don't want to. I didn't become a photographer to have all these headaches. And it's like, I think about you've been doing it now 14 years, 15 years now, and then with an associate brand, it's like managing all these clients, trying to keep up with it. I was like, how do you go about managing that?
I have a VA. Okay. I also work with my wife.
Okay.
We have in-house editors. We also have AI helping us with the editing. We also have an IPS team. We have a small team to handle all these things. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think a lot of people try to save money by trying to do everything themselves, and that's where you get burnt out. I don't want to be burnt out. So I love what I do. I still got to do this for at least 10 more years. My big one is just starting high school next week. Right. So
you ready? How you feeling? Yeah. Is your oldest, that's your son or your daughter?
I got two boys.
Two boys. Okay.
And they're teenagers. So you used to have one.
She kept me busy. But like I said, well, boys, I think that, for my daughter, it was always all the girls. So she went to do cheer and she went to do all these things. But boys, is they play sports. So like, did you get lucky?
I'm trying to get them to do sports. They're more video games type of kids.
Okay.
But we went up for a run today. So that's what we did today.
Nice. Well, they could mess around and go into one of those gamer leagues, and then you're really going to be busy, because now you're taking them to these gamer tournaments, and you're like, well, this is...
I'm trying to get them off the screens.
Yeah. It's like, come on, I need you to throw a punch at something or whatever. Go run up that hill, please. So I just know you got it in you.
Pretty much.
But what's been your favorite thing about shooting weddings, and in the time you've done it? What is it that kind of where does the excitement come from?
Well, I enjoy being out and about, away from, not sitting behind a desk, even though, ironically, I do spend a lot of time behind a desk doing meetings and editing and stuff like that. But I enjoy being around people and capturing a fun time in their lives. You know what I mean? And and when I'm selling wedding photography, it's an easy conversation to have. I feel like it's an easier thing to sell than trying to sell knives or life insurance or something like that. You know what I mean? This is a wedding. It's a happy time. And I get to be a part of that. So being able to express myself creatively and have someone pay me to do that, right? That brings me the greatest joy. But it wasn't always like that. When I first started, it was about the passion, and then it became about the money, the business part of it, right? Because like I quit my day job, I quit all that security, and now my biggest concern was making sure I made enough money to put food on the table, right? So I was taking clients that I shouldn't have taken, right? I was compromising my vision, I was compromising my art, so that way I can keep the clients happy. But you probably know as well as I do, you being a veteran as well, that's not sustainable. You know what I mean? We got into this line of work not just because it pays well, but also because it's a creative outlet for us as well. And once you lose sight of that, that's a very easy path to burnout. So that's what happened for me around around year 7, year 8. And I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I was doing, at that point, I think between the two companies, we were doing about 110 weddings, 120 weddings a year. And I was like, I don't know if we can do this. So anyway, that's around the time when I started attending more workshops, right? I started attending workshops around year 6 or year 7. And I started meeting all these photographers from around the world. I even asked some of them to photograph us, so I can learn a little bit more about their process, their mindset, and all those kind of things. And the most important thing that I learned from these folks was that they gave themselves the permission to be themselves around their clients, right? They weren't pussyfooting around with their branding or their marketing message, right? They say, hey, listen, this is who I am. My hope is that you'll love it, but if you don't, that's okay, right? They're not trying to sell to everyone. And I think that when you're a business owner trying to make money, you're thinking, hey, listen, money's green. I'll take whatever clients come into the door, right? But that's not sustainable, not for the way that we creatives are wired, right? We need to be able to express ourselves and really just be artists in our craft. So anyway, around our eighth or ninth year, that's when I rebranded. And I was like, listen, this is who I am. This is how I shoot. I'm going to be weird and wacky. I hope that you love it. But if you don't, that's fine. I understand I'm not for everyone. But for the folks who do matter, the folks who do love this stuff, they're 1,000% on board. And not only that, not only will they book you, they're going to pay more money for it. So that's been my approach. I got my second win right around then, and I haven't looked back since. I got my second win, and I'm enjoying my work a lot more these days.
So with getting your second win, how have you been able to, I guess, cultivate your creativity? You mentioned, wanting to be creative. Like, how do you, even 14 years in, how do you still get that creative excitement to get out the bed and grab that camera?
I would encourage folks who feel like they're in a creative rut to do more personal work, right? Don't just bring those cameras out when someone's paying you to do it, right? Photograph your family, photograph stuff around the house, even if it's on your iPhone, right? Just remember what it was like to create beautiful images when you first picked up that camera, whenever you got your first camera. You know what I mean? And yeah, just try to find a joy in it. Because if it's just work, whenever you see a camera, I don't know how sustainable that is. Your days are numbered if that's the case. When you see a camera and you're like, ugh, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to go near that thing, right? So doing personal work has been a huge part of my growth. So yeah, I try to do personal projects, whether it's photojournalism stuff with my families, like the families that I photograph. I also photograph my couples and their families throughout the year. This is not something that's really marketed publicly, but I have families that I photograph every year, and this gives me an opportunity to kind of just slow down a little bit and just kind of get back to my roots as a photographer, just without all the pressure of a wedding day. You know what I mean? I can play a lot more. You gotta remember to play when you're shooting.
So every time I have a couple and they make that pregnancy announcement, I always comment congratulations, then I put dibs on the maternity portraits. And everyone's like, how many of them actually hire you from? I said majority of them do, because there's that built-in trust. And
exactly.
Unless you just completely screw the pooch on their wedding, they're like, dude, don't even. Why are we even friends on Facebook? Like, well, how did you get this message? But I'll sit there say that, and
Exactly.
I'll have the parents immediately messaging me like, "Are you free on this day? We want you to do her maternity." And like that's why,
Hmm.
like I'm currently training underwater photography because one of my brides, she's pregnant and she wants to do an underwater maternity session. So when she
Oh,
sent
how
me her
cool is
vision,
that?
I was like, "Well, typically this is when we want to shoot your maternity session. We're going over the details." I said, "Okay, cool. I've got 6 months to learn how to do underwater photography." So I've been every free weekend day that I have, I'm at my buddy's pool. I've got I've got the Altex housing system for the camera now, and I'm just practice. I'll get models like, "Hey, come to the pool. We're gonna do underwater." So I
Man,
just
I
been
could have saved you
practicing.
some money. I could have gotten you a Ziploc bag for much cheaper, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so funny because somebody says, "Wow, that really does look like a big ass condom on your camera," and I was like, "Exactly, yes. Yeah, this is
Wait, you got the? Is it it's a plastic, a hard plastic housing, isn't it?
No, no, I got the one that's the sleeve, the
Oh,
rubber
okay.
sleeve. That's the one I'm
Uh
using for now, and I'm going to eventually get one of the big plastic housing ones.
huh.
Once I get more commission work for that, or I have that reason to upgrade. So
Right,
this right
exactly.
now, so I've been practicing with that. I just did my first like it came in the mail when I was in San Antonio, and then when we got back from Atlanta, I had pool time, so I tried it out for this week. It was the first time I got to use it. It worked out great. I got to shoot finally underwater photography with my R5, which I hadn't been using my
Oh
R5 up until
man,
this point. I was using a loaner and a GoPro, and now I
I'd be
get.
so nervous. Oof.
Oh, I would believe me. I was nervous, but I watched the video more than once, made sure everything was good, and then I did the test. I didn't see any bubbles. I was like, all right, we're going for it, and everything's still working. So it's still working. So it works itself out. But no, it's just having those creative outlets. I agree. It's been just a blessing in itself because you can get to that point. And I tell people the day you start saying I gotta shoot a wedding versus I get to shoot a wedding, I
Right.
get to And I even say if you're already saying that, change your mindset. You don't have to go take pictures. You get to take pictures. You get to do this cool thing
Exactly.
called photography and make great money. And you know,
I said this in my presentation last week too. Like I am so lucky to be able to do this for a living. There are a lot of worse things that I
absolutely.
could be doing. And I don't know if I shared this last week though, but like prior to this, immediately before becoming a wedding photographer, I was working in a chicken factory. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. Do
Yeah, I was
tell.
working in a chicken factory for like 6 years, something like that.
Mm.
And I don't want to go back to the chicken factory. Right? There are a lot of worse. I was washing garbage cans and stuff like that for
Oh yeah. I
like,
mean, like I said, this
yeah.
was originally for me. This was a side hustle to being a high school teacher. Like, let me do
Uh-huh.
some photography on the side, make a little extra cash. And then it was like the first year I looked at it, how much money did I actually make? We did the taxes. I go, wait a minute. I just matched my income as a teacher.
Uh-huh.
But that first year it didn't feel like it because I was reinvesting the money back into photography for
Right.
classes,
Mm-hmm.
upgrading the cameras, paying off a bill or something, and like I didn't see it at first. And then as I went into the second year and the contracts came out for teaching for, that year, I said, look, you got to bump up the pay and then I was cocky enough to say, look, I'm making more money as a photographer. And they're like, called me on my bluff, so to speak. Like, okay, really? Like they didn't believe it because all they saw was, oh, there's no way because you're only charging this much. I'm like, you don't know how much I work, how much I'm hustling. Like, I was like, when I wasn't at teaching, I was on the weekends. I was at a wedding second shooting or learning, or I was doing portraits, and I was grinding like every week. There was like no days off.
Yeah,
But
I
that's how
I
bad I
understand the
wanted it.
struggle. I
Yeah.
understand the struggle. There's a question that we like to ask on our podcast. Is like, how much did you charge for your first wedding?
Okay, so my first actual wedding was by accident. I
Uh-huh.
was supposed to second shoot that wedding. I showed up to it. I've told the story before, but I love telling it. I showed up to the wedding, and it was my buddy Brian who hooked me up with the photographer. He was the guy that was kind of mentoring me at the time. He's like, "Hey, I got a guy who needs a second shooter." Show up, and I had never met the guy. I walk up to him. I find him. He's arguing with the bride. Apparently, and this is in 2013, so things were different. We didn't have the squares and all these different things that we used to for pay. So he apparently when he got there, he mentions to her, "Hey, you still owe a bill. Do you want to go ahead and take care of it now?" And she said, I guess they started arguing. Apparently, she says, "We'll get you at the reception." And he was like, "No, I'm more comfortable you pay me now. That way, I'm not looking for you or bother you during the reception to pay me the rest of the money." So then it was just like an argument ensued. He packed up his stuff and he walked out. And I'm walking in as he's walking out, and he
What?
was like, I'm like, "Hey, are you Tony?" He was like, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, I'm Marvin. It's good to meet you." He's like, "Oh, hey." He was like, "I'm not working today. It's on yours." And I wait, what? What's going on? And then So they're walking out. They're like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Marvin. I'm the second shooter." And they're like, "We got a photographer." I'm like, "Wait, what's going on?" And then a bridesmaid's kind of bringing me up to speed, and I go, "Yeah, hold on 1 second." I'm calling Brian like, "Dude, what the fuck did I just get myself into? Like,
Right.
what's going on?" He was like, "What are you gonna do?" I was like, "They're asking me to shoot the wedding. I've never shot lead. I don't know if I'm ready." I'm like, I'm like internally panicking, whatever, getting ready to have like this mini panic attack. And he just goes, "Oh no, bro, you're good. Don't worry about it. If you suck, they're not gonna get mad because they're just happy that they got a photographer." And he goes, "Honestly, you're ready." And I was like, "Dude, when was I ready?" He was like, "You were probably waiting after after the second or third wedding you shot with me. I think you were ready. I just didn't want to tell you because then I knew I'd
Uh-huh.
lose you as a second shooter and an assistant." I said, "Okay,
Uh,
thank you." And maybe he was saying that to just give me the confidence. So, I mean,
how'd
overshot
you
that
do?
wedding.
How'd you
They
do
gave
that
me
wedding?
11. They gave me 1,100 cash, and I shot it with I had all prime lenses. So I had a 50, a 35, and 85. So I'm like
That's
constantly
good,
switching
man.
lenses. Yeah,
Two
and
bodies,
I
lights.
had I had two bodies, but I didn't have a two body holster. So I had one camera on me, and then I had one by the bag, and I run and grab it real quick. And I
Uh-huh.
was walking around holding two cameras. It was just like internally, I thought it was a complete shit show. Externally, they thought I knocked it out the park. They just pulled it together like 1,100 cash and gave it to me, and then they gave me some more cash after the fact. But then when I got my first like wedding, I got $600, which still at the time I thought was great. And
That's pretty
then
good. 600
once I
bucks.
start once I started really booking weddings, the original goal was if I made as much as I made as a teacher, I thought that was a win. So when I was getting those 900 and those $1,100 weddings and those $1,200 weddings, you couldn't tell me anything because that was a paycheck that I was getting. So
Right,
I was
right.
walking around strutting. And I was like, I tell you all the time when they booked me and I was getting $1,500. Oh, it was. I said, "Baby, it's red panty night. We're partying. Like we're going to Ruby Tuesdays. We're going to Sizzler. Like, you get Olive Garden, whatever you want. Cheesecake Factory, you can get two slices. Like I was, celebrating. But no one told me that I was undercharging until I ran into other photographers that made way more money. You know,
Uh-huh.
and then that's again, as you get knowledge, you start to figure things out. But those early days, man, they were the fun times, but they were also the most dangerous times for a business because I didn't know any better, and I was
Right.
thinking $1,500 was just that's where it was at. And now it's like not to sound arrogant, but if someone calls me and say, "Hey, my budget's $1,500," I'm not your guy because I'm not even gonna like undo it because I don't want to be in that situation where I do a wedding for that low of a price, and then I say I say this comment which I hate when I hear other photographers say was I did their wedding for this much money, and my attitude is always when you accept the wedding and you accept the money, you lose the right to complain about how much you're getting paid because you accepted that.
Right.
Like when someone second shoots for you and they say, "Man, I'm only getting $75 per hour for this wedding." Well, you said yes to it, so why are you complaining? And I've always kind of felt the way I get things happen at wedding where you get frustrated, but when you have this entitlement attitude where it's like you're only, I only charged them $1,500, they should be grateful. Like to me, that's an entitlement attitude. Like,
Right.
they could have paid anybody $1,500, they paid you, you agreed to it, you lose that ability to complain about it. Now, again, that's why you charge what you want to get paid versus just taking anything. And I'm fortunate now to be in the situation where I don't have to, be desperate and take these lower paid weddings because I need to make rent next month or something, like
Exactly.
it still works itself out.
But, at the end of the day, your clients that you charge $600 for, they got their money's worth, man.
Mm-hmm.
$1,500, they got their money's worth. Whenever you were charging and they paid it, they got their money's worth.
Yep.
So I never look down on people who charge very
No,
little.
by no means, because I think it's
Yeah.
all learning. Like I don't sit there and scoff when I see people that are willing to do weddings for 1,500. I'm more so want to educate them when I see them say, "I'll do photo and video for $1,600. You get 10 hours plus an engagement session plus
Go ahead.
the
Go
third
ahead. You
egg of
go
my."
ahead.
And I'm like, dude, you're going to like your entire quote has almost killed me. Like I'm pretty sure I lost years. I'm just reading out your quote out loud. Is like, wow, why would you want to do that to
Well, everyone's got to
yourself?
start somewhere. Like you shot your first wedding for 600, right? And I
Yeah,
shot my first around the same as well.
yeah, and I get that, but it's like you can't be there forever though either. Though, like it's like
Right.
how long were you shooting that $600 wedding for? It's like, that's
Exactly.
where the education. Like I just and again, I know some people have the same mentality where they see the check as, "Hey, I work for this call center and I only make $1,000 every 2 weeks. So if I can get a $1,200 wedding, I'm taking it." And I get it. I understand that,
Right.
but I also urge and encourage other photographers to explore their value because
Right.
if everybody collectively was like saying, "No, we're not doing weddings for less than like wedding photography should never be under this amount of money," then it forces clients to
Right.
in the grand scheme of things, you would think it would force the clients to say, hey, if I want a wedding photographer, I have to be willing to pay this much money for it.
Well, you have
A
to
good wedding photographer.
if they're looking for a quality one or a certain
Exactly.
quality one.
And I would say if you're a really good wedding photographer and you're not making $1,000 at a wedding, call me. Come work for me. You'll make more money, and we'll get to cultivate your talent. And then and then I can truly have an associate brand because you'll make more money associate shooting for me than you will on your own.
Exactly. So. But I do want to clear up like a misnomer, that's out there that a lot of educators are putting out there. That you should just raise your prices, just blindly, right? The analogy I like to share is, about a year or 2 years ago, the real estate market was really hot. I don't know what it was like down in Texas, but like in my neighborhood, the houses wouldn't stay on the market for more than a couple of days. People just snatching them up left and right, right? And so all the houses in my neighborhood, they were selling. Well, just throw a number out, right? They were all being sold for like, let's say 700, right? For 700, and so my one neighbor, she's like, all right, well, my house, I think it's at least as good as our neighbors' homes, if not maybe a little bit better. So I'm gonna, sell it for 800, right? Well, guess what? Her house ended up being on the market for like 2 years. Instead of being sold for over a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, her house was on the market for 2 years, and then eventually she was able to sell it for 650, right? Below what the average was. And part of the reason was, as you start having inspectors coming into the house and they dig in a little bit deeper to take a look at what's going on with the house, found out that there was at least another $100,000 worth of repairs that needed to be done to the house on the inside. So I like to share this story because I think that when we blindly tell people to just raise their prices just because that's where the market is, it doesn't mean that your body of work is aligned with what the market is offering, right? So you could very well have someone who has that $1,000 portfolio trying to market it or sell it for $5,000, right? And yes, if the market's at $5,000, then that's what it is. But your work is only going to command maybe 1,000. You following me?
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think people they're in this fantasy land. They have this higher ideal about their work. I call it the IKEA effect, right? Because it's something near and dear to you. It's closer to you. You built it. You use your blood, sweat, and tears to create this thing, so it's more valuable to you. So therefore, you charge more for it, right? But the market, I don't think the market necessarily lies. If you're doing your marketing right, and you're putting it out in front of people, and they're saying it's not worth as much as you say it is. If you got a lot of people telling you that, then maybe it's worth a listen to see. What can you improve? What can you do better so that you do get more yeses than those?
In those cases, what is your, I guess, your suggestion or your tip or advice for those that are trying to bring themselves into that market value or that self-evaluation? Like if they say they're a $4,000 photographer, I'm using that number as an example. If you say you're a $4,000 photographer, how are you elevating your work to match that quality or what we deem as a $4,000 photographer?
Yeah. So
how do they get better to get paid that type of money? How do you get better to do that?
Right. So my thing is, first things first, don't be too aggressive with raising your prices, right? It all has to do with your inquiry volume. I've talked to some folks who said, oh, I had so-and-so book me $5,000 once, so I'm a $5,000 photographer now. No, you got a $5,000 booking once. Okay. You might've gotten lucky. You don't belong in that space because you're only getting one inquiry a month. All right. You're not a $5,000 photographer yet, my friend. You got lucky for that one. But if you're consistently booking at $5,000, right, then all right, then maybe you belong. In fact, you might even deserve more than that if they're coming in regularly and they're booking you at 5,000, right? So the first things first is to don't be greedy when you're raising your prices. You need to evaluate two things. The first thing you need to evaluate is what your inquiry volume is. All right, you got to know what your closing percentages are. You got to know what your funnel looks like, what your conversions are at each point in the customer journey. And then the second thing is inquiry volume and then conversion, your final conversion. How much of the traffic are you actually converting once you get them on that sales call? My goal is always to be around 50%. If they're closing 100%, it might look really good on paper, right? Everyone who's coming into the door, they're booking. They might look good on paper, but if you've only got, again, one inquiry a month or one inquiry every 2 months, it's not time to raise your prices. It's very tempting to raise your prices when you're closing everyone that comes in. So you need to make sure that you have the traffic to support it, and that you have the closing percentages to support it when you raise your prices. And that's how you can kind of truly gauge where your value is. Okay. If you know for a fact that your work is solid, right? You definitely belong in that top echelon or wherever you think that you belong, then maybe it's just a marketing problem. I certainly seen my fair share, met my fair share of folks who produce amazing work. I'm working with some photographers right now. They do amazing work, right? But their marketing machine's a little broken, right? Maybe they got lucky the first couple of years. They got into this friend group. They're getting a lot of referrals in this friend group, but that referral group dried out. Eventually you're going to shoot all their friends. You're going to run out of friends to shoot.
I remember the early days when I was actually asked this last week, said, when you first started, what was some of the ways you booked ways? People said, oh, are you old enough for this one? Craigslist, this, that. I said, I got one for you, Thumbtack. And everyone was like, I said, yeah. And that was in the era when I was, the $1,500 photography era. So I was, see these inquiries, their budget's between $1,500 and $2,500. And I'm like, okay, let's see, is this going to be the one I break 2,000 for? And I was like, but Thumbtack was where I got so many bookings at between the stretch of, I want to say like 2015 to 2017. I realized I was relying heavily on Thumbtack and was killing it and booking a lot from Thumbtack. But then they changed their system, the way they did it, and then it got oversaturated. And then it was like you get the inquiries come in and you weren't top 5 anymore because the other top 5, because they only allow 5 inquiries per, budget or whatever per profile. So then I was missing those a lot because I did have the day job and I couldn't catch them right away versus, damn, everyone found out about Thumbtack. But then it was like, then I pivoted, was using Waiting Wire and the Knot, and it was great for a little bit. I had that great 1 year thing. I was like, okay, I'm getting ready to pay money and really invest to be on page 1. And then that's when it went downhill, was once I started paying money to them and I was on page 1, then I got no inquiries, or the ones I would get, it was like, oh, well, my budget's 500. I'm like, dude, like, wait a minute. They got me on a page. Who else are you talking to? Because there's no one on here that's charging 500. There's no way. But again, you just learn to pivot. Now, one of my biggest source of inquiries are the open houses from the venues.
Ooh,
you developing the relationship with
you
the venues.
You got a personal invitation, or you pay to go on these things?
No, I think we pay like an admin fee of like, hey, we gotta pay us $40 so we can cover the trash and electricity and the food you're going to eat or whatever.
What? That's an amazing deal.
So it's a private invite. So they invite, and then you just kind of give them something just to be able to pay the staff to clean up that day. That's what that money's there for. It's not even like it's not like a wedding expo,
like a rental, like a space rental or something.
Exactly. It's just like, hey, look, we're gonna be open on this Sunday. We need to pay our staff, because they're gonna be serving y'all food and running electricity and taping things down, helping you with your table. So it's kind of just a kickback kind of thing. So, but I'm on with 6 different venues right now, and they keep me very busy. They give me plenty of good bookings. Yep, and that's I love it. And the thing is, I'm at 6 great venues where I can create great content and great work from.
And then it's relationships. You have a working relationship with these people. They like you. Absolutely. They love you. They trust you.
You get invited out to parties or whatever, and then when they're advocating for you to be at their venues, that's why I say don't be stingy with your pitches. Give them to the venues. Create the gallery. Email them the entire gallery, because you never know what they're gonna love. So, who's
your gallery host, by the way?
I actually just switched to Pick Time.
Did you know? I hope they give me a referral.
So I'm still in the trial thing. So once I'm actually going to talk to them to make sure the person that gets credit, because between you and Andre, you were like, because I was with CloudSpot, and I'm open about what I use. I was using CloudSpot up until because it was really easy to use. But what sold me on PickTime was they offered the same things, but then on top of that, they offered the slideshow.
Yeah, and I love there's a lot of things.
And then they offer the AI recognition, so guests can go in, find their pictures and stuff.
Go find themselves.
Exactly.
There's also the AI for the vendor. There's a vendor portal now.
Exactly. That's the vendor portal was important because I want to create those long-lasting relationships with the planners and with the caterers and the cake and florists. Like, even though it's very rare somebody books their cake or gets their cake before they get the photographer, but still, just creating those relationships.
Man, you don't know, man. It's still giving you access to a new audience. Doesn't matter.
And then it might, maybe the caterer is like, my daughter's getting married. You know, we need to reach
Exactly.
out to Marvin. So you never know. Like something I've always said since day one.
It
Be
takes
careful.
minimal effort. It takes very
Yeah,
little effort to do that.
exactly. It takes a lot of energy to be an asshole. It takes nothing to smile and be nice. And then I always say, be careful how you treat people on your way up, because if you're on your way down, they're going to be the ones that's going to cushion your fall. And I've learned that from the military, and
Exactly.
I've learned that in photography. Some of the best photographers that
Hmm.
treated people bad when they had their downfall, everyone just sat there with a smile on their face watching them fall.
You
And then
deserve it.
but then there's some people that were just really good people, and they just fell on hard times. And people are like, you know what, here, I got you. Here, I got an extra camera. You can use it till you get back on your feet.
Right.
I get it. You had a car wreck, lost everything. The insurance won't cover it. I got an
Yeah,
old laptop you
this
could have.
industry is this industry is tiny. Everyone knows everyone's business, and we talk
Exactly.
about
And
that
that's,
in the podcast all the time.
oh yeah, you
You
gotta,
know.
treat people right, because you never know. Like you may think it's fun to gatekeep and be, how's it called, the old guard, stopping people from rising to the new heights or whatever. But you never know, that person that you're putting down today is the person you're watching on the stage tomorrow at WPPI, because they're ambitious enough and they put in that body of work.
Hmm.
And I said that's what's so important for me. Just what I've always wanted is, I want to, one day be, on the stage surrounded by my peers, my colleagues, my family, my friends, showing appreciation for the body work that I've had over my career. That's the goal for me personally.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if I could do it and do it as clean as possible, then I would have had a great career.
Right.
I didn't have to
Right.
cut nobody's throat to get to the top or whatever. If I won this, I won it on my own merit, and not because that I clamored to the right person that was a part of the judging committee and that gave me the finally. It's like, all right, we're gonna hook you up. It's like, that's always been my attitude. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to. I just want to take pretty photos and make friends. That's all I want to
exactly.
do.
I had a teacher tell me when they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I gave them I want to be a photographer, and they're like, "Okay, you need to get stop playing and save. I want a real paper from you." So they made me rewrite the paper. I said, "Look, I want to be a photographer. No, what you need a realistic goal. Where do you see your career?" I said, "Look, I want to party and I want to make a lot of money. That's going to be my life when I grow up." And they're like, "That's not realistic." And here I am every weekend. I'm at a party, having the time of my life, and I'm getting paid great money, and I get to take cool
Uh-huh.
pictures. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of did live, kind of embody what I said I was going to do as a kid. So it
Uh-huh.
worked out.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. What were some other great takeaways that you got from this summit this past week?
So obviously the networking was amazing. Just connecting with new faces. It's
Hmm.
always, I mean, you're gonna have your core people that you learn from when you're coming up, and when you can get new perspectives, I think is amazing. Like again, the associate things, the way I approach an associate brand now is obviously it's good. I'm going to need to evolve. Instead of having 3 or 4 people that I can reach out to just to give weddings to or fill in for me, create a whole brand that they can work under. I think is something that I definitely want to consider. How I'm going to run my business too. Just switching to pick time, using systems that are going to, streamline things for me and make it easier. I actually got to finally really explore 17 hats and use it properly, where I did invoicing and everything through the CRM for once. And because I used to manually do everything, and I was so used to doing it that became my norm. But I got an inquiry that I booked in under 5 minutes when I was in Atlanta. So it was no
Hmm.
more like, well, when I get back to my home computer, I can write up your contract. I can do this. I can do like, nope. I did. I was able to copy and paste and just plug it all in, and I did it in under 5 minutes. And I was like, this is
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like I literally saved myself an hour of time. So
Yeah.
I mean, just those different things. Obviously, shooting, just pushing the envelope on my creativity, how I pose, how I like, challenging myself to always go for the better shot and not play it safe.
Uh-huh.
What are the key takeaways? Plan ahead, stop making excuses. So I was in the marketing, sales 12-month marketing. I've heard it so many times, but again, if you like right now, we're in summer, we're getting ready to hit fall wedding season. If you're not thinking about your engagement, marketing, that's going to come up because I'm going to get a big hit come the holiday season.
Uh-huh.
Then I'm already behind the power curve. So I'm already thinking about those things. I'm already thinking about locking in the last bit of my senior portraits for next year for class 2025, because I always get a big spring push of last
Uh-huh.
minute things. So I'm starting the marketing now so I can plant those seeds now in the fall. So in spring, when they're like, oh shit, we need to get our senior pictures done, they're calling Marvin. And
Hmm.
I lost the ability, like my daughter was supposed to be my gateway into it all, but she graduated a year early. So everything's been accelerated. So now it's like, oh, but her entire class the seniors at her high school were all juniors last year. They were in the same grade with her, but she graduated. So now I'm getting all those kids now. So now
Uh-huh.
this is the year I get to capitalize on that. So
Well, you can do family photos for your younger ones too, families too. You know
yeah,
what I
I
mean? Go
can.
to some
I can.
PTSA meetings.
I should definitely promote that. You know what? Believe it or not, family portraits are one of those ones that I'm not a big fan of, just because like I've always, what's the word? I've always got the short end of the stick, because I get the dad that doesn't want to be there and the kid that's just had it that day or whatever, and it's just like a nightmare for me. Like, but majority of them have never been great experiences. The ones that were great, I loved it, but then most of the time I get the attitudes that I just like, this isn't fun for me, you know. And maybe I should maybe change the dynamic to where it becomes fun. But I'm still trying to figure that part out, because
Uh-huh.
families are tough,
Yeah,
because there's so many moving parts.
I've been pretty lucky. I guess it's what you put out, right?
Hmm.
What you show, and it looks fun for dad. They'll be more likely to play along.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like, again, Atlanta, it was like really cool to just see everyone, to make these new connections. Like I said, I just got to be a student, and that was the big one. Slowing down when I'm shooting. I don't have to rush. Like, I was so conditioned on the speed shooting because of weddings, but when you're doing maternity, you can't rush a pregnant woman. You can't make her do 1,000 poses in 10 seconds. Just slow it
Hmm.
down and let her take in that moment and let her move slow. And like, I got to slow down a lot, and that was a big thing for me, which is slow
Weddings
down.
are your bread and butter, or you do more portraits?
Weddings are my bread and butter.
Uh
And
huh.
then all the portrait work that I've done since then has been a extension from weddings. So like, I never did boudoir until weddings. I wasn't boudoir first wedding. So it was always weddings, and then I have a bride side, I want to do a naughty book. And I'm like, in that era, I'm like, oh yeah, we could do that. And then I have to Google, what's a naughty book? What does she mean by that? It's like, oh yeah, so send me your thoughts. And then I realized, oh, she's talking about boudoirs. Well, shit, how do you do boudoir pictures? And I'm like, now I'm going down a rabbit hole, how to be a boudoir photographer. And then it's, oh, my younger sister's graduating high school. Do you do senior portraits? Yeah, I sure do. And then I was like, well, yeah. One of my first mentors was a senior portrait photographer, so I would just pick her brain and be ready for that. So those were really easy. And just like, as maternity, I didn't do maternity until one of my brides got pregnant. Then they're like, we need to do your pictures. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, let me do a light check. And I'm checking pictures on poses, because I never posed pregnant women before, you know.
Uh huh.
So it's just, again, but those opportunities provided challenges, and challenges is what gets me excited. I love to be challenged. So that's where the portrait stuff came in, was just an extension from weddings. And
Hmm.
but family portraits, like I said, most of them, the ones that I have fun at, are like my couples. But like, random family that calls me and says, hey, can you take a pic to our family picture, because uh, one of my friends goes to our church and she recommended you did her daughter's wedding. Those are the ones where it's like, oh man, okay, cool. I show up, the dad's wrinkled shirt on, doesn't want to be there, he's mad, he's missing the Cowboys game, the kids haven't had a snack yet and they're upset, or they had a
Marvin,
snack and there's food
that's your
everywhere.
fault for scheduling it on the day that the Cowboys are playing.
No, the wife schedules it. I'm just the one that agreed to it. Again, I don't say you think I want to miss a Cowboys game? No, but I figure if they're scheduled during a Cowboys game, they must be like, Raiders fans or something. Nope. Shows up. He's like, I'm like, oh man, he's me. He's like, yeah. He's like, you got 20 minutes out of me, and then I'm done. I'm like, well, she booked an hour and a half, but okay.
All right. I mean, you already got your money, so you get what you get.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't,
So
I don't stress out over that stuff anymore. I get what I get.
yeah,
You
you
guys are out of
know,
gas. We're good. Whatever.
yeah,
You guys
and
know how
so,
much time you gave me.
but I also learned, like, when you rush, then they'll feel rushed, and that's what causes the what's the word I'm looking for, the dynamic you don't want. So I've learned to like slow it down and take time and really get to see people build a shot.
Hmm.
That's what I got to see a lot of, like some of the classes when they were doing the walks, where I watched them build the shot, so I got to see their theory behind how they're setting up a shot versus just like, hurry up and shoot, get a light here. It's like, no, what do you see? And then look at it. Like, what do you look for? Are you looking for leading lines? Are you looking for composition? Like, all these things, just taking a step back and slowing it down, I think was super important.
Hmm.
And again, just being challenged to just take better pictures. So that was always fun. But out on the business side, the IPS class was amazing for me, because I still struggle with it, because I have that anxiety of saying, this is going to cost you $3,000. It's like, I still struggle telling people that they need to give me that amount of money for this. And it's like, you want these two
Are you
albums, it's
still
going to
doing it?
cost you.
You're still doing it yourself, or?
I am. Yeah. I haven't found that person to just take it off my plate and, give them,
I got
and I
someone for
should get a
you.
V. Okay.
I got
Definitely. I'd
someone
love
who.
to.
I mean, you can use my IPS team if you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do all our IPS for us. I don't have the time to do it because in order for you to do it right, you need to spend a lot of time to prep them for it. And then the
Hmm.
actual meeting itself will take anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. And I don't
And
have
see, and
the
not
time.
having a studio, like I was doing things like I was using the WeWorks places where we meet up there. So they drop to WeWork and I have to get there, set up, pay for the time that I'm going to be there for, set up the board and everything, put out some wine and stuff, and go through my whole presentation spew, and that usually took about an hour. So I booked 2.5 hours of WeWork time, which is great, the shared office spaces. But then it was like, what happens if they're late? What happens if they no show? They said, oh, we don't feel well. Can we come out next week? And you're like, dude, I just dropped 150 for this room. Like, get out here. You're gonna, but
You'll
you
make
have
that
to,
money back. You'll
yeah,
make
you'll
that
make
money
it back. But
back.
it's like, the frustration behind it. Then going to people's houses, I always felt like it's gonna sound really cheesy. I felt like they had home field advantage. I never liked trying to sell at people in their own homes because
Uh-huh.
I'm in their space. They're comfortable there. I'm the visitor. They have home
You can
field
do it over
advantage.
Zoom now. You don't have to do everything in
Yeah,
person.
and that's where I'm now crafting it to where I can do it all over Zoom. Now it's about streamlining it to where it makes sense and how to do it when I am selling over Zoom. And I think it'll
Yeah.
allow me to take away that anxiety of being in front of them and saying, this is how much money this is going to cost you. And then start sweating in front of them because now I'm having that adrenaline going through my system. Like, are they going to say yes? Are they going to say yes? What do we do? What do we do? It's like, you know what? I'm getting used to just saying, this is how much it's going to cost you. And then I said, because when like you look at bookings, when the venues refer me, most of the work is done. I don't have to sell myself anymore. I don't have to prove myself against other photographers. I have
Correct.
a body of work that's there. All I have to do is just show up, smile, and say, "Well, yeah, I'm available that day. This is, you've got the prepaid pack, the pre-package that the venue gave you because that's the special I'm running for the venue." And they say, "Which one do you want?" "Oh, I want that one." "Okay, great, boom, and that's done. Versus like the cold introduction of why I'm a great photographer, why you want to hire me for your wedding. Like I don't have to sell all that because they already got that already before I even showed up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And doing that, and I have my action list of things that I want to do. Redesigning the website. I'm not doing a rebranding because I'm keeping the same logos and stuff. I'm just redesigning the website to make it look better and to
Mm-hmm.
elevate as I grow to grow with me as I grow in this
Mm-hmm.
next stage of my career. So.
Mm-hmm. Are you designing it to make it prettier? Are you also optimizing it for SEO?
Both. I'm with Show It, so I'm bringing in. I'm actually going to probably bring in an SEO person to take that over for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the things that I don't want to do, I try to pay to have people do for me and streamline it. That way, I'm buying back my time, so I'm not sitting in front of the computer for 5 hours figuring out SEO. I can just pay somebody the $120 and they can do it for me for that month, and then I'll just pay them again next month and just do it that way. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
almost at a point where I might pay somebody to do all my social media for me at this point.
Uh-huh. You can get VAs to do all that stuff. You get a VA
I
or a
know.
social SEO specialist.
I'm
It's
I'm
gonna be more than
struggling with.
$120 a month, but
Well, yeah, I'm just like the first like we'll do it for this. But I don't know that much about the pricing. I just know like it'll take a lot off my plate, but I'm still struggling with giving up everything too. So I'm like, I'm trying to find that balance of
uh-huh.
how much do I need you for, and then like what are the things that I absolutely want to keep on my plate, and what are the things that I need to get off my plate. Like
Uh-huh.
hiring my video editor was a godsend because they gave me back 60 plus hours.
You know what PickTime does blogging too, AI blogging. Did you know that?
I saw that. That's what I said. So that's why I'm jumping on there because now they just gave me back 2 hours every week when I don't
Uh-huh.
have to blog anymore. And
Make
so
sure you
again,
tag PickTime when this goes up so they know that I was talking about them for an hour and
for
change.
sure, yeah. And I mean, and I want to get a promo code through PickTime. So like I said, when I say I want to take on sponsors, I just want to take on people that I use. Like I want to sell what I use. I'm not gonna be like, hey, but get this one. And I'm like, I don't use that shit. It's like, why would I tell somebody to use that if I don't use it? But that's always been my go-to. Like, but I'm always open on what I use, and I'm always open about, I'm not locked in with any company. So, if something makes sense and it works for me, I'm going to switch to it.
Mm-hmm.
With cost benefit analysis. It's like CloudSpot and PickTime are very similar in pricing. PickTime has an edge because they offer more things around the same
They got
pricing
a lot of
point.
cool
So,
stuff. The rest of the industry, they'll catch up eventually, but PickTime's
yeah.
way ahead of the curve. And I'm very excited for
when
what
I
they're
get asked
doing.
about albums, I always say, well, what kind of albums do you want to make? Because some companies are more suited for the albums for certain type of albums, and then some are just like, if you're doing just standard, like, are you trying to do anything special with the covers? Nope, just standard leather albums. Any one of them is great,
Uh-huh.
But then if you want to stand out and use custom covers and custom leathers and stuff, that's when you want to think about these other brands because it elevates with you. Does it match your brand and what you're trying to do? You
Right.
know?
Who do you use?
It's a few. I actually had a nice conversation with Floyd Color. Before that, I was using Zeno for the longest, and I was also using H&H.
Okay.
So I was using two different companies for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, I would get a great deal from now when I was with CloudSpot, they could order albums and it would actually be fulfilled through White House. So White House Custom Color would do my automated albums, which those are the ones that I don't even design or touch because the clients are doing that off of their galleries. So, which I had no control over, but they were happy. Still got a standard leather album. So I have three different. I always say get three options because if one company goes down, you have another company that can replace them immediately.
Yeah, these guys are not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's like like back order supply issues.
Oh,
They'll send out the email saying, hey, we can't take any orders for the next 4 weeks because we have a supply issue. You're like, okay, cool. I have a backup company to use now.
Right. So what can I share with your audience? What kind of burning questions do you have for me?
Man, we've just been chatties. We've been two chatty Cathys. I realized we just went over an hour. We've gone over an hour. The biggest thing is some of the questions when I ask some people, what do you do? The biggest ones I got were like, how did you grow? How are you've talked about, associate branding, making money, things like that. The things that people want to know, like, how can you break into these industries? Because like as an associate brand, you probably make more money than people that are doing it full time. So it's everything's a lot of money questions is what I got,
Sure.
How do you manage two brands? That's another one. How are you able to manage two brands?
I have a small team.
So how do you fight the power how do you get through past the feeling? Because I struggle with this of giving up the responsibility to other people.
Well, you got to understand you're a business owner now, right? No one's ever going to be like you. They're not going to do stuff 100% like you. So you got to be okay with things going out the door at 90, 95%, even 99%. We've gotten to a point where our editor gets it to us at about 99%, right? And we got our photographers shooting 90, 95% of how I would shoot something, right? So you got to be okay with that, right? Because the thing is, there's the law of diminishing returns. You heard of that? Like once you get to a certain level of peak performance, the final 2 or 3% is going to be the hardest for you to attain. Like when you're trying to lose weight, right? The last 5 pounds are the hardest to lose, right? Yep. If you're strength training, right? The final 10 pounds are the hardest to lift, right? So you're gonna see a huge improvement when you first start, but once you get to almost perfect, near perfect, it gets harder and harder to get you to 100%. So you got to be okay with your people, your team getting to 95, 99% because that's as good as you're gonna get, and you got to be okay with that. And then that way you can focus your attention on other things in your business, like growing it, marketing it, recruiting people, training them, all that stuff. Because you're a business owner at the end of the day. When you have an associate brand, you're no longer just a creative person. You are a business owner. You got to run it like a business. And, 95%, 99% is good enough. I mean, yeah.
It's still an A, in the world of academia, anything above a 90 is an A.
So. Right. So, you got to be okay. If it's pretty damn good, then it's good enough. Right. But as far as growing the company, that would be one of the biggest things I would advocate for, just being more comfortable with letting go, right? Trusting others to do the work that you're asking them to do.
Nice. Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I could ask you so many more questions, but we did hit that. We are past that 1 hour mark and out of value.
We can make it a 2-hour session if you want.
Now, what I'm gonna do is get you here for a part 2. That way, I have an excuse to talk to you again. And now, we've already talked to Ben. We're all been out, and I'm aware that my audience has about a good 45, 55 minute range before they start tapping. But no, seriously, man, Ben, it was amazing. Again, where you got Focused AF podcast. Where else can they find you at on social media?
They can just find me at Ben Lau Photo. That's my photography work. I also have a free coaching group, free sales and marketing coaching group, the Go Getting Creative. Just look it up on Facebook. We are on Instagram too, but I'm not really active on there. I do most of my work, my coaching work on Facebook in the Facebook group. So just look for it. Go Getting Creative. I got to change the logo. I got like Bruce Lee. I'm sure that Bruce Lee estate's gonna come find me one of these days. I gotta switch that out one of these days. But yeah, just come find me. I'll let you in. And there I talk shop, I talk business, I talk about this kind of stuff for about an hour every single week. You know, people got questions about sales and marketing. I'm there to answer it. I got nothing to sell at the moment. I used to have a course, two courses actually, one on Facebook ads or meta ads, and the other one on just general sales and marketing. But I took those off the shelf because I currently have my classroom is full, so to speak. Like I'm working with students right now. I don't want to take on more students just to make more money. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that these guys are successful first, get them
Wait,
going on their way,
quality
and
over
then
quantity.
yeah, I want to make sure that they're on autopilot, and then I'll take on more students. At the moment, not taking any more students. I'm just hanging out with people once a week, talking shop. That's all.
Nice. All right,
Yeah.
we'll make sure I'll plug all your stuff in the show notes and everything where everybody can find you. But seriously, man, thank you so much for your time. Again, it was great meeting you last week, finally in person. I look forward to the next visit. Are you doing any more conferences this year, or what's on the pipeline conference
I
wise for
think
you?
I'm all conference out. I because
uh,
I hosted my own conference too early this year. We
oh,
didn't
that's
get to
right.
talk
That's
about it a
right.
little bit, right? But
Oh man,
I'm so conference out, and I think I'm done with. I mean, what is it? It's pretty much September. By the time this airs, it'll be September, right? I don't know how long your post production time
it's
is,
probably
but
gonna be in the next week or two.
yeah.
Next week, two.
So I got like 3-4 months out of the year. I'm done.
Oh yeah.
I need to spend time with my paying clients and my family. You know
Yep,
what I
the
mean?
kids are in high school now.
Priorities.
You get to deal with the first heartbreak when he go, or the first time he asks a girl out to the school dance. All he get to
He's
go
going to the
down
all
that journey.
boys. He's going.
Oh man, this is gonna be fun. So is there like the sister school attached to
There
it, like
is.
like across the across
Yeah. There is.
the
There's one on the
town?
other side of
Okay,
town. Yeah, there's another one
that's
on the
what.
other side of town, but I don't know how it all works. But you know, but I
I
don't
said
know.
we have one dance. We bring both kids from both schools. They come in, they meet that way, like old school. It's like they dance. They have the balloons with.
Save some room for Jesus. Save some room for Jesus. Well, I appreciate the invitation. Yeah.
That's it for this week's show. Again, thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with others. Leave those reviews and check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Until then, see you next week.